So my name is Scott Mosqueda. I am the Senior Director for Site Reliability for the online experience for Dell. And we're going to talk to you about some cool stuff that we've done in regards to Black Friday over the last couple of years. So I want to introduce to you Tanuj. He's on my team. He's instrumental in this, and I exhort you to ask as many questions as you can to him, because he was up late last night also. And then Mike, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, Mike Brown, staff PS consultant with Splunk.
And Mike and Tanuj were the key ingredients for what you're going to see in this presentation and how we came to a successful conclusion to our Black Friday this last year. And we're looking forward to another good one. So I wanted to talk to you, before I go a little further, this is my counterpart, Bill Shaw, stand up here. With these, he's on our, he works on the back-end services for us. He's the director over that. And then also Jay Cobrath and Tim Passel. You guys want to stand up for a quick second? If you want to know how we implemented all the stuff, these are the guys that helped us from the IT side to get it done and continue to help us out. So if you look at the screen, that looks like Austin now. It didn't used to be like that, but this is exactly a couple of years ago what our Black Fridays looked like to us. It was mass confusion, mass amounts of data, mass amounts of congestion in everything we did, roadblocks at every turn, situations that take way too long to handle, and we never seemed to hit the right exit. We never seemed to get off at the right place, and it's amazing we made it through Black Fridays without being too scathed up all the years. But and this is kind of what our customers look like. They look like they were all backed up at the door. They all wanted the doorbusters, and no one seemed to be able to complete the task that they wanted to in the timely manner. So I say no, and sometimes we would drop something out of their cart that they had before, then they would get on social media and tell everybody how nice Dell is. And these are the things we would deal with year after year for Black Friday. So taking it back and let you know kind of how important Black Friday is to us. It's not really about the money for us during Black Friday. I don't know how many folks work in the industry where Black Friday is so humongous, but it's a brand thing for Dell. We never want to be the site that went down. I don't know if you guys saw the stuff that happened this last year where some of the sites went down and we saw puppies or what have you. So, we don't want to be the site that goes down during Black Friday. We want to serve our customers the best we can. This is the day that for our business customers, we offer up the best deals we can for their families and such. And so we expect that we have a good experience as we go through it. So negative customer impact was definitely there. The experience was not good, and we've worked on it. We've got all these gates on how we sell, but we weren't necessarily getting it done the right way. We had a tremendous time trying to figure out what the problems were, and a tremendous time figuring out how to resolve the problems. So the mean time to even find the issue was too much. We would have outages that would last overnight sometimes. They weren't necessarily the mainline applications, but they would be peripherally part of our Black Friday event, so they definitely would affect our brand, which we like to protect. And then we also had this kind of siloed view of what Black Friday was. For a customer, for the business, and for IT, it meant so many different things. And you may get a different answer on what the most important thing was if you asked a different person. And so the stuff we worked on tried to bring that all together for us to make something that some of these key KPIs that we could share across between the business and IT, and we were all marching to the same thing. And then we had this humongous set of data that was totally disjointed, not usable a lot of times, and our tools were going down. We had, all of our tools were going down at the wrong time. Everybody at Dell wanted to see the tools when Black Friday doorbuster hit, and then all the tools went down. That's the way it worked. So that's kind of where we were at. So the old process in place, I'll just kind of go through this thing. If we have an outage from a network perspective, application servers would go out, the businesses, the things that the business needed to be successful would not happen. We didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. It was very siloed. We had scaling problems. And the customer feedback would come in and say, hey, Dell, you told me I was going to get an Xbox for $199, and when I checked out, it was $250 or whatever, because they missed the deal. And we weren't doing a very good job of showing, and we'd have some issue in the middle that would cause this. So the idea was to fix this problem. So in comes ITSI. We already had Splunk. There was a lot of data out there. Here in comes Tanuj and Mike Brown to help us to get through these things. And I want to bring Mike up now, and he's going to go through some of the things that the professional services added to our situation.
Thank you, Scott. So I worked with Scott and Tanuj to build the ITSI environment in place through Black Friday. So just adding some insights into the process that we use at Dell and that we use out in the field. So one of the things, generally our engagements start with 2 workshops. We call these service discovery and service decomposition workshops. And the purpose of these is to have early and upfront discussions about what it is that we're trying to build and the environment that we're modeling. So we're trying to get an idea of the pain points of the customer and how we can build that in ITSI. The service discovery is very high level. It's basically just breaking a business problem into services and describing, documenting, and agreeing on priorities for the engagement. That to some extent is done prior to us coming on site, just because the pain points are known and we're starting from that point. The service decomposition is a workshop where we're trying to determine the components of the service itself, right? So we already know who the service owners are at this point, and we're inviting them to meet with us, and we're breaking down a service into KPIs, key performance indicators that describe the health of the service. So we're taking kind of abstract ideas and making them concrete, and concrete is things we can build in ITSI. We're also extracting service dependencies, right? What services depend on others, and any entities that would be involved, servers, network devices, anything that would be involved in the environment that we'd also need to include in ITSI. And so at the end of our first week, we generally have a good understanding and agreement of what we're trying to build. And just to bring it back to Dell for a second, so we had at Dell we had easy access to the business users. So generally, when we're doing an ITSI engagement, we're working with IT stakeholders, and one thing that helped us quite a bit was access to business users. So it wasn't strictly required that we bring their needs into the engagement, but we did set a meeting with them to try and get their perspective on what also needed to be built from their side. And this was a big win for the engagement. So, in talking to them, it turned out that they had good information and they were making good decisions, but the data that they were using was coming to them too slowly. So, relative to IT users, I think the business users were somewhat underserved by Splunk's capabilities. So that was an opportunity for us, and it's not unique to Dell. So through this project, we were able to give them a real-time feed to their data, and this was a big win for the project and for their teams. We were also able to implement a number of services that were relevant only to the business and would not necessarily have been captured if we were only focusing on the IT side. Another thing that came from meeting with the business team was a customer satisfaction metric. So this metric was something that was completely outside of Splunk and was not currently tracked. So through the project, we were able to bring that customer satisfaction in and provide a real-time, a real-time customer satisfaction view. So this was also a big hit with the business teams. So after having these meetings with, again, the business teams and also the IT side, what stood out? So Dell was already a mature Splunk customer. There were hundreds of users of Splunk and hundreds of dashboards already in existence. A lot of Splunk expertise was already there. People were building already very good dashboards. And they mostly had the data that they needed in Splunk. So, instead of focusing in this engagement on the task of onboarding data, we were able to focus on more high-value tasks like building services in ITSI. Another thing that stands out is the notion of what constitutes an error. So this is kind of an interesting one. So if you think for a second, if you're trying to count the number of errors in a log file, how you might do that, right? I think in a perfect world, you might say the number of lines that have the word error in it might be a way to say that. But in real life logs, it doesn't always work out that way. So you'll miss, if you're doing it that way, you'll miss some events that don't have the word error, and you'll overcount events with error in the line multiple times. So just taking account of the word error in your log file will give you an incorrect count. So one thing that was done here was individual service owners had already decided what was an error to their logs, and they had formed patterns that were able to help us keep account of the errors in their environment. So that was one KPI that was also very easy to configure. So taking all that in, and we were ready to build services, right? So one thing that I would say when we built services is we definitely took an iterative approach. It was very hard at the size of Dell's environment to build the environment out completely from one go. So some of the things we did, we changed our mind about the number of KPIs that we were building. We changed our mind about which threshold templates would be applied. We changed our mind about naming conventions. So the iterative approach is definitely the way to go in terms of building services, and you need to be able to apply these changes en masse. So service templates make this very easy for you, and automation was also very helpful in this. So over the course of the 8 weeks we were there, we made 500 services, 1,800 entities, 5,000 KPIs, and 0 ad hoc searches. We fed the entire environment with 32 base searches. So we could have, again, if we were doing this ad hoc, we would have had 5,000 searches in the environment, but through careful design, we were able to get it down to 30 base searches, which was a big savings in terms of Splunk infrastructure and in terms of running ITSI in their environment. So thresholding, so in this environment, so after the services have been active for several days, we began the process of creating thresholds. And that's what is going to determine whether your KPIs are healthy or not. So as your KPIs roll up into services, it'll also determine whether the services themselves are healthy or not. So after waiting a few days, we were able to begin the process of creating thresholds. And again, this is something where we took an iterative approach. One thing that stood out is the data surprises you. So if you think you want, say, 2 standard deviations for a threshold, you might be better off with 4, or you think you might need 1-hour blocks, and you might be better off with day or night. So it's very hard to say ahead of time what thresholds you actually need, and it's better to start with a more general and more modest goal for thresholding and then tune it from there. So that's one thing we did. And using ML, we were able to set thresholds more automatically and more consistently than if we were trying to do it by hand or try to do static thresholds. So whenever possible, we were using adaptive thresholds. So to talk here quickly about Splunk as a platform for AI ops. So the environment that we built looks a lot like this diagram, right? We were essentially building metrics along business performance, service management, application performance. We touched middleware and storage components as well. So, I think one thing you're seeing in ITSI is the automation and integration of machine learning capability, and that helped the entire environment and the deployment at Dell. So just summing up some of the things we talked about, having all of your data accessible in ITSI or in Splunk is certainly a starting point for an ITSI engagement. Making sure you're talking to all your stakeholders, mapping out your services and applications either through a workshop or through discussion, and putting your success metrics in ITSI. So, and then this is just about the difference between Splunk Enterprise and ITSI. So Splunk Enterprise is certainly the basis for ITSI. You need Splunk Enterprise in order to do any work in ITSI. ITSI adds on to Enterprise. So Enterprise is more for general search and reporting. ITSI will give you that live real-time update of your services. And one thing we noticed is that it was a big saver in terms of infrastructure, right? So versus in Splunk Enterprise, to investigate something, you have maybe potentially hundreds or dozens of users pulling up dashboards and individually running searches that those dashboards need. In ITSI, those searches are run one time for the benefit of all users of the product. So it was able to save resources on the Splunk side. So that's all I had, and I'll turn it over to Tanuj for a demo.
Hello? Hello? Okay. Thank you, Mike. So now that we have a basic understanding of what we tried to achieve, let's get right into a demo of our existing Dell environment. So it's a live demo. So whatever you see today, if it is red, that means something is wrong on Dell.com. So we're taking the chance to see what happens. So whatever you're going to see is what you have on Dell.com right now.
So if this happens and Tanuj has to leave, and then one of you
now
guys,
you know why
one of you guys will continue the presentation.
Let's see. Okay. Okay. Looks good so far. So nothing major happening over there. So what you have here is the culmination of a lot of our IT activity that is going on right now. So we have, like Mike had mentioned, around 5,000 different KPIs that are being collectively aggregated in a way, and basically we have like several different pages of this particular ITSI glass tables available. So what you have, I've just renamed the names of the applications and named it as App 1, App 2, App 3, and so on. But you get the gist of it. So the first app here has a total of 128 servers. And what it is showing us over there is the CPU of all those 128 servers together. So when I say aggregate, it is not averaging it out, but basically it is giving you a max value, the extreme value out of those 128. So a visual representation of what is happening in our environment is what is shown over here. So you have CPU, your memory and storage, and network bytes per second. And then you have very interesting stats that we have, the traffic flowing in 4 of our data centers at this point. So basically during Black Friday, what we come to see this particular dashboard for is whenever there is a doorbuster, every hour we have a doorbuster, there is a huge spike in traffic coming into our environments. So as soon as the spike hits, you would see this particular network bytes completely spike up. So that is visually we can see that there's a huge influx of traffic coming into our environment. So at this point, what we also want to see is the load equally distributed amongst the 4 data centers? So that is a key aspect of our monitoring. So what in the past, we had all this kind of information, but we could not see the impact of load coming in and what is the impact of it being lopsided towards one particular data center. So you would have a lot of load going to one data center, and the servers in that data center started spiking up. So some customers were getting exceptionally fast response times, whereas some customers were getting like really poor response time. So we couldn't understand why. And once we laid it out this way, where you can see the traffic pattern going through all the 4 data centers and equally distributed, then we understood, okay, the CPU is directly related to the traffic which is going through that particular data center. So that is the IT picture that we have several pages of these. This is just one of them. Then we also have, now this was really a big hit for IT, and we started using this for our load testing as well. So as the new holiday season was approaching us, we want to stress test our environment. So how do we stress test? You apply a lot of load on all these applications and stress them out in such a way that you identify that weakness at one particular stage, it would start breaking. So we started identifying like capacity issues and all that with the same dashboard. So it was using this dashboard that we increased capacity on several of our applications. Now, this was a good hit for our IT infrastructure. Then we thought, okay, there's our business. Our business teams were also coming back to us and saying, hey, we have these doorbusters which are running every hour in our environment, but we want to see if you can measure our orders that are coming into Dell.com, customers placing orders, what is the revenue, what is the margin that we collect, all that kind of business analytics data. Straight, can we get that into Splunk? So we said, don't you have tools for it? So everybody said, yes, we have tools for it, but all of them kind of report some unique metric out of it, but we don't get the entire picture. Plus, they are not real time. They are at least 30 minutes delayed. And that was one of the things that we wanted to understand. Okay, so you want it real time. What are the key metrics that you want to collect for us to collect? So they said, we are very, very important ones are like conversion. We want to know the sales data. We want to know how many orders were placed. For each country, we are global. So for every country, we want to see that. And plus, we also want to measure the customer satisfaction. That was the biggest one for Black Friday, is to measure the customer sentiment at that point. So what are our customers talking about ourselves, our company, and we wanted to measure that in real time. So put it into perspective. So for each section, we have home, for work, and for US and Canada, we got something called CSAT. Those CSAT scores are customer satisfaction scores. So wherein a customer comes on Dell.com and anonymously gives a feedback, whether it would be positive or negative. So that score gives us an early indication about problems that are being faced by our customers. Maybe some deal did not stay long enough, and those kind of things are immediately reported back. So our sales teams were really appreciative of having this available to them so that they can look at this one in real time and readjust their strategy as well. So one of the other things is the important aspect over there is the sales. All that data is dummied up. It's not real for obvious reasons. But during Doorbuster, what happens is every sales team has a goal at the end of the day to meet their numbers. So they can either increase the revenue or increase some of the margin. So it's up to them. So basically, they want to have this in real time so that they can cross-sell some of the items which are higher margin, so that they end up at the same goal that they have, right? So this to us is, every time anybody thinks of Splunk, they talk about only raw metrics from machines and all that. So then we started seeing that there is huge benefit of adding customer data directly into Splunk as well. So this has helped our business tremendously. Now, let's put this together. So look at this. This particular screen, this glass table out there, talks about the 24 pages that are there on Dell.com.
Oh, green too.
And all of them are green. So everything is working fine as per now. That rarely happens, but it is. Okay. So look at, there are some aspects of it which I have changed. There is some revenue and margins and all that which I've hidden from this particular one, but you get the picture about it. So what you have over here is the top section over here talks about the conversion funnel. This talks about TTI. TTI is a metric that we use to measure the speed of any transaction which is happening on Dell.com. So from the client browser to the entire experience, what is the time, average time it takes for a customer to reach to fulfill that particular request? That's trending towards 3.2 seconds. So 3 is our normal target. It is above that, so it's slightly slower than usual. That is what it indicates. And the next one is the CSAT, which is Customer Satisfaction Index, which is usually we range around 55 to 65 or something. So we are within that particular range. I would think so, slightly lower. So those are some of the business metrics. Then you follow it by basically the traffic load balancing that is happening, and what is the total, whatever we saw in the previous glass tables. Now I've condensed it into a smaller view where this is talking about the CPU memory and network of all the maybe around 1,000 servers together. So in a bird's eye view of all that particular environment. And you can also see the load balancing that is happening. Everything is green. Right? So coming to these 24 pages, these are broken down as services, right? Each service, page is a service. What we identified is 6 key components or 6 key performance indicators we identified. One being like 4xx errors, 5xx errors, application errors, TTI and visits make up a service in ITSI. So the health of a page is determined by these 6 services, these 6 KPIs. So anywhere you see a red over here, that has breached the threshold that is assigned. So not every KPI is weighted equally. So 5xx to us is a much more problematic. So it is weighted higher than a 4xx. And page speed is again lower than a 5xx. So this is a weighted average is different for each page as well. Now, what you have here is, at a simple glance, our executives are able to see the entire ecosystem. So the developers are interested to look at their individual pages, how they perform. The business is looking at this particular corner of the screen. IT is looking at this particular corner of the screen. So now we condensed all these 4,000 different KPIs or so into one particular page. So this is our bird's eye view through which we can analyze what is happening on Dell.com today in the US, right? So the other important thing what I want to talk is here what you are seeing is ITSI is taking snapshots in time. Like every 30 seconds, it's taking a snapshot, right? So at this particular instance, 26.07 is our conversion, and TTI is 3 points. So I can go back 5 minutes ago. I can go back a week ago. I can go back based on the data retention. I can go back however far I want to. Now, this is very, very powerful in the sense that we can do RCA analysis based on this particular information. So if somebody says, 1 month ago, what was your score? How were you doing at that point? I know exactly a particular scenario where we had a massive issue on Dell.com. I can quickly go and see how our glass table was during that time. So using this feature over here, I'm just going back to April 16th, long time ago. There you go. So I don't have to tell anybody what is the problem there. So right at that particular moment, we had a huge issue going on Dell.com. And it is the most severe of the issues because it is the bottom, the last item in the funnel, basically, where customers want to give us money and we are not accepting it. So that is pretty bad. So that was quite serious at that time. So now with ITSI, just like that, from now, I went all the way to April 16th. I know, and I'm doing an RCA right now after so many months, right? At that time, what were my parameters at this time? So you see the conversion, it is 10%. It's very, very bad. Usually we should be around 20-25% conversion rate. So it's 10%. The TTI is okay, customer satisfaction is still okay. But what can I do further at this particular point, right? So we have all these metrics in one place. Now I can deep dive into this. So I want to see what happened during that time and what caused it and when, right? So basically you drill down into this. I have a deep dive here. Okay, so I click on that. You get a deep dive over here. And that talks volumes over there, what happened at that particular time. So this is, as I mouse over here, so on April 16th at around 5 a.m., you can see there's some degradation in the 5xx errors and the application errors during that time, and it breached the thresholds quite bad, right? So you can see that during that time, so starting from 5:05 all the way until around 7:48 a.m., it was completely dead, right? And it was the worst page on our site to have an issue like this. Now, what else can I measure with this? Like, just telling 4xx or 5xx doesn't make any sense. So for our business, we need to quantify, hey, did we lose money? Did we lose any orders? That is the most important question that the business keeps asking. What is the customer impact? So that is the typical question most of you might hear. Now, because we are also capturing the business metrics that is already there in Splunk ITSI, I am able to do a timeline analysis along with the errors. I can now see the customer orders. So this is the swim lane. This is the KPI for customer orders. And you can see during that time, pay attention to this particular lane over here, 189. And you can see from 5 a.m. till 7, we just made around like 50 orders. That is very, very low. Now, how do I know it is low? Because I've seen this particular one day in and day out. But will the business agree to that? No. They want to say there's something else. Basically, it was a much worse impact. So nobody needs to. Let's look at the data and analyze that. So with ITSI, you have this feature called compare. Compare it with the last week. So what it is doing is, for each of the KPI, it's adding another row for the previous week for the same time period, right? So as you see this, so you are comparing April 16th with Monday, April 9th for the same time period. When you compare that with the same time period, you can see that there were no errors in the previous week. But the most important thing is the customer orders. You can see how the customer orders were 189 versus the previous week 261. And by the time the errors have completed, you have a 200 order delta. So there is no denying it. Basically, right there, the data talks volumes about what happened and how much was the impact. So we also had like the revenue numbers in here. I took it off. At least the customer orders will give you an indication what you can do with this particular data. So that's where there is now with the business data or the business intelligence data available in ITSI plus with your raw IT data, you can now compare and contrast what is the cause, what is the effect much more easier. Right? So that is one of the things that we are able to do quite effectively with all the collaboration that we have done so far with IT and our business metrics. I think that's all I had.
Okay. Where's our presentation?
Yeah.
All right. So the results that we had were magnificent. You guys don't go too far because there may be some quick questions here. We got. I don't understand any of this. Okay. So we did have zero downtime during our last holiday. The doorbusters were tremendous. The business was able to see real-time data. They were able to adjust. We were able to check where our doorbusters and other sales items could be added or taken away to have a better effect on the sales for our customers during that time. And our customer satisfaction just went through the roof compared to other years during the same time. And then, of course, we just continue to work on our brand and make sure that we are who we say are, which we're Dell.com during the holidays and all times of the year. So tremendous time for us, and we learned a lot of things. These guys were tremendous and working together with IT and such to come up with these things. We have other pieces of this that we're adding to it, and we're going to enhance it through the ML pieces. Bill's building more things for all the service tiers that are underneath for tax and shipping and cart and checkout, all the things that we do to make sure the experience is good for our customer. We have a few minutes, so in case you guys want to come back up, and if anybody has any questions, you can step to the mic, and we can talk about whatever you'd like to talk about in regards to this.
Yeah, I had one other thing, basically. I want to recognize Tim Paxel over here, for the excellent support that he has given us. And also Joe Rizzo. Where are you, Joe?
Joe's in the back there.
Joe Rizzo, he's from Splunk. He had helped us tremendously over the years. It wouldn't have been possible without Joe and Tim's help for this particular.
Yep. All right, we have a question right here.
Yeah, service decomposition is tough, I know, and a service can represent so many different things. Did you come up with any standards or policies or rules for service modeling, service hierarchies, depth, width, KPI limits, and so forth?
Yeah. So we limited ourselves to basically 3 levels deep. So service A calling B, B calling C. There was an opportunity for us to go all the way till N, but it was complicating too many things. So it was all the service health of the completely down application was rolling up, and basically it was becoming unmanageable. So we limited ourselves to 3 levels deep. That answers.
Thank you.
I'm pretty happy to see that the business data is actually integrated into the technical data. Did you face any privacy data policy issues while integrating both the data sets?
Yes. So we are limited to what we can ingest into Splunk. We had our own challenges, but for some use cases, we had to do what we have to do. So we took our privacy lawyers into account and basically worked with them to make sure that in some cases, for example, fraud or something, we had to do some stuff like that. So of course, it's case by case in most cases.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So thank you all for coming out, and I pointed out some key folks if you have any questions, and I know a lot of it is around how do you get started, and with ITSI, it's a huge thing in front of you, but it's the benefits are there, and you can really build on it and really understand your data to a point that it's very useful. So thanks again, appreciate it.